Have you ever found yourself in a line, perhaps at a train station, bus station, or the airport, and you're really not interested in talking to anyone, and you're not really interested in looking at the news, because the one thing you know for a fact, there's very little that you can do about the news, about things that are happening elsewhere. And a lot of times people are boring. They really are boring. So, what I have done, I have made this little video with my backyard as the background so that you can watch it and know that I may be just full of it. I am a messenger, and I think I have a message. But here's the beautiful part about it all. You are free to agree or to disagree, and you are free to think for yourself. As an adult, that's what we do. So, this is a little chit-chat, off the cuff, unscripted. And it's going to be filled with a lot of errors. Why? Because I'm a human being. And as such, human beings make errors. But our mistakes in life don't always define who we are. I believe that. So, again, off the cuff, little chit-chat that is unscripted. So first of all, let me tell you a little bit about who I am. I was born in Jamaica. My father was from Jamaica. My mother was from Costa Rica. And then I came to the United States in 1960. After having gone through schools in Jamaica, which was based on the British educational system. And when I got here, I went through cultural shock. Literally went through cultural shock. First of all, truth was no longer truth. What I had learned earlier did not apply here in the United States. And that is something I had to deal with. So, what I did, I wanted to make something of myself. I'm an immigrant after all. And that's why we come here, because we believe in the principles that are involved when you take a look at the United States of America. Immigrants are almost always willing to start a business, to get to get a degree, to pursue higher education. That's the basic premise of immigrants. So, I spent 21 years in the Navy. I joined the Navy in 1964. And it was the best thing that I could have done. Because through the Navy, I was introduced to different cultures. I went to different countries. I met people of different persuasion. And I learned a lot. But throughout it all, there were basic concepts that people shared universally. So I said to myself, well, is there a universal school of thought? For example, I had gone through and I had been made to believe that the Judeo-Christian religions are the only ones to believe in, and their God or gods are the only one to believe in, until I made a very startling discovery. Miracles happened in every single school of thought. Miracles happened all over the world. Miracles happened in every single religion. So, what was the common denominator? And I found it. It is like Jesus, a person I call Emmanuel, said, your faith, your belief is what has made you whole. And he also said that seek and you will find it. And that's the nature of truth. If you've got ears to hear, you will hear. But seeking truth is something that is your responsibility. So, having said that, I went ahead and I looked at all the so-called education that I've had, and I coined a phrase called Microdacism. And you've got to understand that Microdacism is not written in granite. There is a evolutionary process involved, a change. What I say today, I could very well change my mind tomorrow based on the revelation of new facts. Do you understand? So quoting what I say today and said, well, you said this. Yeah, well, I did. But you got to understand, Microdacism is dynamic. Dynamic. It is forever growing. It is like creation, which is different from creator. So there it is. So this is something that I formulated in Microdacism, and a lot of it really, it's not original. See? I can say that because I am not living on my ego. I am just me, one out of billions of people who is a seeker of truth. Okay, so I have made 14 suggestions. One, the quest for self-discovery is the most important quest in life. Now, I said that because, quite frankly, whoever you are, you believe strongly and firmly in what you have been programmed to believe, okay? If you're born in Asia, in the middle of Africa, in the Middle East, South America, in one of the Polynesian islands, wherever, whatever religion you are born into, you were made to believe that is the only school of thought. And you will defend that, and you will defend the God that religion is associated with. That is the way we have been programmed, okay? So, what you have to do, in my opinion, is to pursue the number one rule in Microdacism. The quest for self-discovery is the most important quest in life. Number two, knowing yourself and being true to yourself is the most important way to live. Now this is difficult, extremely difficult, because it's a lot easier to do what you're told, to believe what you're told to believe, rather than knowing yourself and living a life that reflects that knowledge of self. Number three, develop friendships in a sincere and personal way, but never forget that to others you're merely an asset or a liability. The friendship could well be based on their needs, not yours. Now I say this because this happens all the time. We make the mistake of believing that acquaintances are friends. They're not. You are in their life because of what they need from you. And if you can be honest about that, you're doing great, okay? So, if you can determine who your true friends are, 80% of your happiness has been solved. Anyway, number four, work to develop your intuitive and sensitive nature, because those are your true engines of your creativity. I firmly believe that we are all born to be creators. I believe that. And I believe that creation, which is ongoing, is a lot different than the creator. A creator, in our perception, is somebody that we have been told is a creator. There are something like 47,000 different denominations and sects in Christianity alone. And each of them have their own concept of the creator. They have personified what cannot be personified. So therefore, I make a distinction between the creation, which is ongoing, ever evolving, and the creator. We can never, ever, ever, never, ever know about creation because we are created as a process of that creation, and that's okay. Okay? In your personal life, do what you do for self-satisfaction and never for approval, which is a poor slave master. Applause and criticism are insincere at best. Have you ever noticed that all artists, musicians, poets, writers, they don't really write to please the audience. They write as a way of expressing themselves as a creator, okay? I remember once I went to a powwow, an Indian powwow, and at the powwow was a man, his name is Stuart Cardwell, and I asked him, because he was playing the flute at the time, and I asked him, may I use your music as the background for this video I'm making? The guy looked at me and said, it is not my music. It simply comes through me. That is one of the things that have helped to shape me. What I say comes through me. It is dynamic. It can be changed. But here's the thing. At the time that I'm saying it, somebody out there, somebody needs to hear something. So you'll watch this video, if you're still watching it, and you'll hear something that clicks. Perhaps a word, perhaps a sentence, and it'll inspire you to go back to that self-discovery of self, for you to be that very unique, very special, very wonderful and beautiful person that you are. Of course, you're told otherwise. Okay, speaking about being the creator, rule number 6. Create something each and every day. Now, I live by this. I do. Every single day I wake up, I express gratitude. I say, thank you, thank you, thank you. And then I am lucky enough so that I can pursue something. I can create something. Now, I have made videos 10, 12 years ago, and perhaps only 5 people watched that video. And then I'll make a video like last week, and I look at it, and 100 people have looked at that video. So, here's the thing. It is not for me to judge, okay? Back to that thing that I said earlier, that you don't do things for others, you do things for self-satisfaction and never for the approval of others, which is a poor slave master. So, rule number 6, you create something each and every day. Number 7, I think, is extremely important, but extremely difficult to do. Be yourself always. Be yourself always. Others will either like you or not, based on their need to have you in their life. Now, my nephew once told me something that really resonated with me. He said, when you're talking with people, you're always expecting the best. You're always expecting the best. But be prepared to be disappointed. The other day, I met a woman, and everything was fine until she revealed herself, you know, that blind self. And I found out that, yes, I love her, I care for her, but I really don't want to ever approve of her behavior. She doesn't know that she's projecting her true self, and in doing so is revealing a part of something that is not really very nice. I think it was Oprah Winfrey who said that when somebody shows you who they are, believe them. Believe them. Okay, number 8. Generosity and sharing are not what you do for others. Let me read that again. Generosity and sharing are not what you do for others. It is what you do for yourself. It is one of the most important of all spiritual laws. When you give or share, do so without strings attached. Now, this is the first time that I've mentioned spiritual laws. And I happen to believe in such a thing as spiritual laws. We have laws of physics, we have laws of mathematics, and I believe that we have spiritual laws. In the Oriental religions, they talk an awful lot about karma. You know, it is something that you cannot avoid. If you consciously do something, if it is to hurt someone, you are responsibility for the karma. Karma is real. Jesus is the one who said, you will reap what you sow. I think spiritual laws of sharing and giving will also come back to you because it's a law. No judgment, no good or bad, it's simply a law. So, number 8, generosity and sharing are not what you do for others. It is what you do for yourself. It is one of the most important of all spiritual laws. When you give or share, do so without strings attached. Now, number 9. This is probably one of the most important of all spiritual laws. What I perceive to be a spiritual law. Okay? Number 9. Happiness is directly related to one's dependency on others or things. The less dependent you are on others, the happier you are. I believe that 100%. My goal is to be less dependent on things and on others. Because when you depend on things and on others, you are really diverting time and energy in pleasing that person because you are obligated to that person, which infringe on your happiness. So, happiness is a personal choice. In my opinion, you choose to be happy. And one of the best things you can do as far as you being happy is not to be dependent on things and on others. Number 10 is something that I believe in wholeheartedly. Okay? Your belief in God is a personal matter. Keep it to yourself. Finding and recognizing God is a personal quest. To each, it is different. Now let's talk about God for a minute. Earlier I told you that God is man-made. God is a man-made entity. Some people even go as far as to say God is a him, a male. And I believe that God is not man-made. The entity of God, in my opinion, is that ever-increasing, ever-growing, ever-presence of creation. Now, I have no idea how to explain that. None whatsoever. But I don't believe God is a male or female. We have personified God, which is beyond understanding at this time. So, what I have done, if you go ahead and you take a look at the thoughts of Microdac, if you Google the thoughts of Microdac, I have told myself that I don't want to use the word God. Instead, I believe in creation, but I believe that creation is a prerogative of universal intelligence, which is a prerogative of energy. Now, that is my personal belief, and the word God is a misnomer, okay? I believe in the creation process, which is universal intelligence. Now, some people will argue with me, and there is no such universal intelligence. But I got to tell you, I have experienced so many miracles in my life. I can only believe that there is these transcendental miracles in my life. I give credit to that universal intelligence. Okay? And this intelligence is very much like rain. Rain falls on everything equally. Everything. And that is my belief. Okay? So I don't like to use the word God. I like to use the term universal intelligence. Quite frankly, I wish I had another term, maybe a one-word term, but I don't. Okay. Now, earlier I talked about spiritual laws, and your discovery, I should say, my discovery of spiritual laws is my discovery. And so therefore, I extend a courtesy of allowing others to make their own discovery. These spiritual laws are not in books, holy books or otherwise. And I got to tell you, there are certain universal truths as I have traveled this world. A mother will give her life for her child. In all the culture that I've been in, love is the cement of that culture. Harmony is a way of life in that culture, now regardless of where that culture is, okay? Peace is what is required, deeply required in every culture. Sharing is a part of a way to live. Sharing. And all these great qualities of humanity, I think, are based on spiritual laws that were given to mankind by that ongoing process of creation that I call universal intelligence. Now, I could be wrong. Okay. Number 12. Hurts no one in any way. Now, hurts no one in any way. The Buddhist, who, by the way, does not have a God, but Buddhism, I think, is a way of life. They extend that to all life forms. The point is, if you cannot create life, what gives you the right to destroy life arbitrarily? So, number 12, hurt no one in any way, but always be aware that is not the way of life of all people. So always have a plan B when you come up against people who find that hurting others is their way of life. And I got to tell you, my argument with religion is religion gives people the excuse to hurt other people because they can always say it is God's will. It is in their Bible, their sacred book. Don't you see that? And I don't believe that. I really don't. Now, number 13. A lot of people believe that 13 is a lucky number. Learn to accept from others, and I do. You'll notice that I'm always asking for a donation, and I use this donation to buy cameras and microphones and computers so that I can spread what I see as my message. I know I am not my ego I have shelved. Dave Clark will be forgotten when he goes away, when he makes his transition. So it really doesn't have anything to do with me as a person, okay? It's just the messages that will resonate with somebody, one person perhaps, who will be inspired to go on to do good. So, I accept from others, and I do so gladly and with a tremendous amount of gratitude. So 13, learn to accept from others. They give for their own reasons, not yours. I give because it makes me feel good. It makes me feel as if I should. I want to share what I have. So that is my reason for giving. If somebody asks and I can, I will. Without judgment, with no strings attached. Okay? So people give for their own reasons, not yours. And you got to remember, when you attach something to your gifts, remember this. The master, he's the one who pays. The servant is the one who receives, okay? So you got to know your place, and you got to know the reasons why people are giving. In a job, you give your master your time and your intelligence, and he in turn pays you, but that's the string attached, okay? Finally, number 14. In your professional life, you do what you do because you want to do what you do, not for a thank you or for applause. As I said, the master pays and the servant accepts payment. Whether you do it with good attitude, that is, whether you do it with a good attitude or a bad attitude, you have spent time that you can never replace. So, this, in summation, is what microdacism is all about. Think for yourself. Be happy. Be the best human being that you can be. Those three things. Think for yourself. Be happy. And be the best human being that you can be. So now you know what microdacism is all about. Now, I reached my conclusion by reading. And when I read, I try to glean wisdom. I try to glean wisdom from the books that I read. And I'd like to, with your permission, suggest certain books. This one, The Art of War. This should be in your library. If the person wants to leave, if in a conflict the person chooses to leave, allow them to leave. According to the Arts of War, don't get in conflict unless you know you can win. I think that's good advice. So, get the book, The Art of War, and be it in your library. Another book that you should have in your library is this book right here. Now I want to tell you something. This book was quite an eye-opener for me. Back in the days when information was being compiled into a book called the Bible, people had no idea about UFOs or, for that matter, about extraterrestrial, and they just believed these extraterrestrials to be gods. And that's where people begin to worship God. In my opinion, and it is my opinion, that God is what people begin to worship because they did not understand. Now, when you study ancient civilization, you will sooner or later come up against the Sumerians. The Sumerians, now that's a very interesting culture. They had this fixation with gold. So, what they did everything they could to turn people into their slaves to mine the gold. And they came up with a very brilliant idea. The Sumerians were the one who came up with the idea to convince people to work hard, to toil unceasingly, because when they do and they die, they will receive their rewards in heaven. Isn't that a brilliant concept? And that same concept is used today. And as for the reason they give for work today and get your rewards in heaven later, is because of people worship God. God is also the time when these Sumerians created gods for people to worship. Isn't that brilliant? So, I have reached the point where I'm reading this book right now. And it is brilliant. Here's my belief. I believe that honest schools of thought. I don't believe in religions, as you know. I just don't. There are 47,000 different religions, denominations, sects. Okay? They can't all be right. And every single one of them is based upon a belief in God. And every single one of them have a sacred book, and they cannot all be right. Now, I believe that eventually all legitimate schools of thought will become one. And that's my belief. There will be a marriage, I think, between schools of thought, commonly known as religions, and science. And the truth will be known. And the truth will set us free. Another book that I actually enjoy reading is this one. This book. This is a guy who is now living in our time. And his wisdom is remarkable. So this is another book that I think should be in your library as you pursue your quest to think for yourself. I believe this should be in your library. Okay? Now, another book that I think you should, especially if you're a Christian, I think you should have this book in your library. I want to read you something, okay? Because it's important. Okay, so you need to bear with me. I'm not a good reader. Okay, here we go. And it's a story about the circle drawer. Miracle workers had many in the land. Miracle workers had been many in the lands of Judea in the 1st century BC. An ancient Hasidic master came out of nowhere to mesmerize the population. They called him Kunu, the circle drawer because during a long drought he audaciously drew a circle in the sand, stood at the center, and declared that he would not move until the Almighty sent rain. One does not make such a demand about the deity, decreed the contemporary sages. But Kunu, the circle drawer, was a folk hero, and folk heroes are not easily excommunicated. As the Talmud records, it once happened that the people turned to Kunu, the circle drawer, and asked him to pray for rain. He prayed, but no rain fell. What did he do? He drew a circle and stood within it and exclaimed, "Master of the universe, the children have turned to me because they believe me to be a member of the household. I swear by the great name that I will not move from this place until thou hast mercy upon thy children." Rain began to fall. He said, "It is not for this that I have prayed for rain to fill cisterns, ditches, and pools." The rain then began to come down with great force. He exclaimed, "It is not for this that I have prayed, but for rain of benevolence, blessing, and bounty." Rain then fell in a normal way. This kind of intimacy with the Almighty, coupled with bold audacity, can be seen at the heart of Kabbalah. Now remember, the Kabbalah predates oral history. It predates actually written history. But it is also the basis of the Abrahamic religions, the Kabbalah. It should be in your library. Finally, and this is a good one, this book should be in your library. And I say that not because it's a sacred book. Remember, this book is a compilation of oral history, and it was compiled not too many years ago, as far as time is concerned. But don't look at it as a sacred book, but look at it as a source of wisdom and inspiration. Very much like the way you would look at Aesop's fable. You all know of a fact that there is no such thing as talking animals. But when you read Aesop's fables, the wisdom cannot be denied. This also is a book that should be in your library. Okay? I believe that it should be. It is so filled with wisdom that I don't even know where to start. I don't even know. I won't even quote anything. Get it and read it as a source of inspiration and, of course, wisdom. Those are my things. Now, finally, this is a book that was written by Mark Mathabane. This is it. I would urge you to look up Ubuntu, look it up, Google it, and really study the philosophy of Ubuntu. This man, Mark, believes that we have the power to have peace on earth, but first we must do something about schools of thought, religions, if you will. We must do something about that. This is a book that should be in your library. Now keep in mind that I'm not paid to advertise any of these books, but I'm simply trying to explain to you where I gleaned the wisdom that I follow. I am still trying to be a wise person and to be a kind person. Let me read you something, okay? The church and white supremacy. Now, this sort of resonates with me because in a town where I lived, there were two Baptist churches right across from each other. What made them different is that one was a white people Baptist and one was a black people Baptist. They may have one or two token person from another race, but basically that's what they were. And this is what Frederick Douglass, one of the great thinkers in America, many years ago, he said, "The white man's happiness cannot be purchased by the black man's misery." In one of the most powerful sermons, A Knock at Midnight, based on the Epistle of St. Luke, Dr. King challenged the church in America to cease being an arbiter of racial injustice and oppression and an obstacle to healing and reconciliation. Quote, "The church must be reminded that it is not the master or the servant of the state, but rather the conscience of the state." End quote. King went on to say, "It must be the guide and the critic of the state and never its tool." Many criticized Dr. King for saying this, some including groups of white Southern clergymen, accusing him of being an outside agitator and questioned his, quote, "radical," end quote, tactics of marchings and sit-in. Dr. King responded by his famous, quote, letter from Birmingham jail, in which he forcibly argued that his critics were conveniently forgetting that Jesus and his apostles were considered as radicals and agitators in their time. I got to tell you, Microdacism is really about you thinking for yourself. Microdacism is about you creating your own school of thought based upon your knowledge, your experience, your intuition, and the wisdom gleaned from wise people. So, when you stop and think about it, that is all Microdacism is. It simply encourages you to think for yourself. And in so doing, create your own school of thought, your own rules to govern your life. Your own school of thought based upon your knowledge, your experience, your intuition, and the wisdom gleaned from wise people. Okay? And these people can be in the past, or they can be in our time. One love. Recognize that, right? One love. Imagine a world without borders and boundaries. Recognize that one too, huh? Love is all we need. You see what I mean? Wisdom gleaned from wise men. I doubt very much if even one person will even look at this, but I was moved by the spirits to share this video. I have done so. Thank you, thank you, thank you.